Well, we have come to the genetic trauma associated with the second line of the human design, which is the exploration of the nature of anger. And oftentimes the reason is because you have a genetic trauma of denial. Now, denial is often manifested through your anger and the act of shifting blame onto others as a form of a self-defense mechanism. Individuals caught in denial often fail to see beyond themselves. They struggle to restrain their emotions and readily release their anger, often directed towards their loved ones unconsciously. Others may trigger this denial by rejecting your perspective or even denying what you feel is authentic to your sense of self. Now, the crucial challenge is to not assign blame, but to recognize that the source of the issue lies within you. It's important to note that denial doesn't inherently make people malevolent. It represents a strong illusion of repression and rejection and all the other traumas intertwined. Every individual carries this pain within their souls, with a degree of pain being similar, yet it expressed in different variations. So with the trauma of denial, oftentimes is the blindness to see the power that you actually possess. If you are blaming others, you are assigning power of others over yourself. So you're not being empowered by your own emotions. You're actually leaking your power and giving the power to other people. One of the things that helps if you have this genetic trauma is to sit in silence and learn to isolate the feelings of denial, the feelings of anger, and what is the actual root. What is it really connected to? When was the first time that you remember you experienced this feeling of being denied and anger was the only way you knew how to defend yourself? You want to examine some of these pivotal moments and do the journaling around this in the shadow work so that you can see, what is this really connected to? What does this mean to me if I'm being denied of something? If I'm being denied my truth or speaking whatever it is that I feel, like, what does it mean and why is it so upsetting and triggered? Relaxation is what's going to be the key to working with this trauma. In order for you to relax, you must have mechanisms in place to soften. And this is embracing your feminine energy, whether you are a man or a woman. Cultivating feminine energy will ultimately help you to be more in tune with your emotions in a compassionate way, in a more nurturing way. Shifting your focus away from the external challenges, the external things that, are upsetting you, so that you can learn how to facilitate your own soothing mechanisms for your soul that's healthy for you. Once you reflect on, these things, I call this the R team, and this is regulation, relaxation, reframing, and resolution. So you work through each step, and I will be talking more about these steps as I'm putting this guidebook together for how I have overcome a lot of significant traumatic events in my life and the patterns that it created that show up in my relationships and the way that I defend myself. Anger often stems from one's individual reactions. It's not necessarily tied to a specific person. It can seem like it, but the specific person, the common denominator, is always you. And, if your partner is oftentimes the one that trigger you, it very well be a dynamic that you witness through your caregivers or your parents that created a pattern for you. So when this trauma is evoked by something happening in your life, figuring out what is it going to take to regulate my emotions, to soothe my nervous system, to help the inner child within me to feel safe, to help my soul to be present without this immense need to compartmentalize and separate myself and push people away, because anger is usually what we use to push people away. If you have healthy boundaries in place, if you have discovered the areas where you need boundaries and you enforce them, you don't have to use maladaptive strategies to push people away. Even if you have people that don't respect your boundaries, communicating and expressing to them that I'm learning about my genetic trauma. I'm learning, even though if you don't know what that is, that's something that was passed down to me through my bloodline, and anger happens to be something that I struggle with in my interactions with people. Even if I'm just feeling anger within myself and I want to learn how to work through this, I just need a moment to myself. There are ways that we can respond to people when we're triggered that can actually de-escalate and neutralize the trigger. When you learn this, even if you just use this one example that I shared with you, you realize that there is no longer a need for the world to perceive you as a certain way, because the pressure of feeling denied the opportunity to speak up or to be yourself or to do what you feel is best for you ultimately fuels this anger that will eventually come out of us. And I find that I feel more empowered when I'm angry, and I don't find a way to disperse the energy through someone else, and I just lick my own wounds. And it allows me to transmute what could be a trigger, what could lead to tension and a problem, and turn it into a moment for me to self-care, for me to focus more on myself and what I need in that moment. And this is what I call being a nuclear creator instead of being a nuclear reactor. A nuclear creator, you're on a quest for identifying what disempowers you, what doesn't, leaning more into what empowers you so that you can transform yourself, and then you can transform your reality. Before I learned about these main 6 genetic traumas, I was trying to heal everything all at one time. And it was great because I was able to create the 3D Matrix Detox course, which is still available. It's just ceremonies, mirror magic, shadow work is already pre-plugged in for you. You don't have to figure out what to do. And I was able to get to know myself on a deeper level, and I realized that as a woman growing up in the patriarchy, someone who was murdered in a past life for doing exactly what I do now, I felt denied the right to live boldly, to be more brazen and assertive, to speak up, to say no to what I want to say no to say yes to what I want to say yes to just do me and what I felt like was best for me. So I created relationships that were very codependent upon me self-sacrificing and me not angering other people. And oftentimes, not only was I angry, but I was hurting inside because I knew that I was not being my whole self. And I didn't feel safe to be my whole self. So I would push the anger down, and most women, this is what we do. We push the anger down. We deny it. We ignore it. We try to distract from it, because there is this subconscious program within this 3D matrix that says that you are wrong for being angry. You are bad for being angry. You're bad for being mad. You're not allowed to be mad. And a lot of us, our inner child is experiencing life with us because we're multi-dimensional. So every other aspect of you, every other age and whatever experiences you had that created your patterns of your psyche and your conditioning now is present with you. And depending on the astrology, we vacillate between these different ages of our experience, depending on whether or not you're going through a Uranus opposition, or a Chiron return, a Saturn return, a Venus return. Every so often, certain planets revisit us for us to master self-mastery. This is what we're here to do. So if you resonate with being a generational curse breaker, but you don't know the genetic trauma that you're here to heal, it's going to be a lot harder for you to figure out what works for you, what type of environment works for you. How do you make decisions? Everybody don't make decisions the same way. There's an inner authority that each and every one of us has within our chakra centers to make our decisions. I'm an emotional authority. So I listen to my emotions to make my decisions. That's the opposite of what we were indoctrinated to do, which means the way that I create harmony in my life is oftentimes going to go against the grain of other people who have been conditioned and expect for me to operate through life the way that they see fit. So this created so much, friction just in small, simple things. And I couldn't figure out what it was. Years of going to therapy, years of doing shadow work. I've worked with plant medicine. I have worked with meditation. I've worked with sound healing. I've worked with mantras. I've worked with mudras. I have worked with breath work, which I recommended. Learning how to balance out my vagus nerve. I have worked with holistic physicians to figure out what my hormonal imbalances are, what my neurochemical imbalances are, what can I be eating to help with that. Going to acupuncture, attuning my meridians to be in more of homeostasis, because I'm someone who deals with organ issues. It just comes with what I incarnated to experience. So it started off with me helping my physical, and I realized there is no disconnection between the emotional and the physical. And I feel like a lot of us are having health issues because maybe we're taking care of the physical the best we can, but if the emotional authority component is not there, if you don't know the best way to make decisions for yourself, you're going to have a hard time understanding what's happening in life. And you're more likely to feel like a victim to what's occurring. So if any of this resonated with you, and you are on the journey of exploration, your soul's journey, reclaiming these parts of yourself that you have lost, I would like to invite you to book a Human Design Akashic Record reading, where I will delve into all of these different areas, all of your chakra centers. I will delve into your gates, your channels, your planetary transits, and how that translates in day-to-day life for you. And you will have a guide of at least 100 pages that you can use to study yourself. Self-love, it's not an option. Self-love, self-reflection, self-discovery is an essential component to anybody who wants to create a new earth, a new way of being, a new system, new energy, right? New ways of creating relationships. And this is where it begins. I would even go as far to say, worshiping yourself. And when I say worshiping yourself, I mean loving yourself so much where your body is being treated like a temple that you come to serve, be in service to, before you offer service to others. When we change the direction in which we are working with our energy, everything in our reality shifts. Things that you thought were impossible become possible. And this is that beautiful realm of the fourth dimension that we're experiencing now. Healing the mental, healing the emotional is necessary to be a spiritual minded being. You cannot have one without the other. So I'm going to put all of those links in the description. And, my readings are probably like nothing that you ever experienced, because we go laugh together. We might have a moment where we cry together. I bring my whole self to this. And it's an honor for me to be able to be in service like this, because I want to see people in their power. I want people to know who they are. If we're creating relationships when we don't know who we are, then our relationships are always going to be in this limbo where we're not quite sure of how to coexist. And in order for this mass epidemic of relationship instability that we're seeing to change, we must figure out who we are. And we must learn how to be whole within ourselves, not needing reassurance, not needing validation, but that just being the cherry on top when you receive it, but not something you're depending upon to feel like a whole person. Namaste, Namaste.